So, my friend posted an article a little while ago about how the Book of Revelation was actually a adaptation to a book of Roman curses, and that the language used was specifically chosen because it would have been recognized at the time, used at the time, and it would have been commonplace. The references that they use. So I'll link that below. But it was interesting that he posted that because I've been thinking about this for, well, it's part of the collection of thoughts. And a while back, I made a video called The Procession of the Equinoxes, How to Act Your Age. And, a lot of people who are doing more scientific procession studies, but this is more about human age association, like age as in span of time, with the zodiacal assignment of that age, which is all human, right? People um, assign those, right? And it's the growth of astrology, the growth of humanity, and all of these places in that time. So I've been writing about it. I've been thinking about it. I've been trying to collect these thoughts. But when that article was posted today, it was like, wow, this is right on, because this is a while ago. So this is what, I'd say at least a week back in time of my thoughts. So we've been thinking about this. It's just interesting that it was the revelation, right? Because I wrote mathematics, science, history, art, all interchangeable with myth, all rooted in stories of observation, descriptive words, adjectives, context, all dancing through time, changing as language changed, growing as humanity grew, maturing through the ages. Sure, disasters came through, cataclysms and shifts, war, famine, disease, but this is part of the balance. No place does life exist without death. No place grows without decay. Entropy, chaos, regeneration, Genesis, and Revelation. Regeneration, Genesis, and Revelation. Those two words intermingled become the regeneration, right? That idea of that phoenix coming through, right? But deviation from the norm will be punished unless it's exploitable. And though that's like the Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer meme of philosophy manners, and it's like, he who does not offend cannot be honest. And that's a difficult thing that I traverse every single day. Every time I talk about anything, I have to consider the social implications of it, the ramifications of being honest. And I'm not talking about trying to be offensive to like disturb people. I'm talking about trying to get to the bottom of things and actually look at them in a logical manner, in a healthy manner, right? What has time taught us? What have we learned through psychology, through maturation? I mean, even I grew up in the 90s and I watch movies from the 90s and I'm like, oh my God, we could never say that now. Like, that is completely socially unacceptable, right? And we knew that it was unacceptable at the time. We knew that the behaviors were destructive, but we often coded them with humor, or we just accepted them as life, as people, right? But then we knew that they were wrong, and our children knew that they were wrong, and our children knew that they didn't want to feel that way, and we knew that we didn't want to feel that way. And society is changing, we are changing, and so that's how these things kind of evolve through time, right? We have to be honest with ourselves. So one of the responses to that article about the book of Revelation being kind of hijacked, inspired, lifted from, used as a template for the book of Revelation, because we know, if we acknowledge it, right, that the Bible was a compilation of books, like the Christian Bible, the King James Version before that, right, like the book that the Orthodox and the Roman Catholics, but mostly Christian lineage, right, from that point on, from the fall of Rome, when they picked themselves back up and they were like, oh, we're Christians now, right? There was a series of councils, just my kids yelling in the background, there's a series of councils that decided which books were going to be a part of this book, and they compiled it, and they left things out, and some of them were ancient texts, and some of them were stories that they wrote, and some of them were written to kind of influence in a certain way, right? And then those influences were used throughout, like the apostles and things like that, which we talk about. We're not talking about that right now. We do talk about that other times, so check out the Tetramorph video. But what was coming to mind was this Abrahamic society that we live in. Okay, so whether or not you're Christian or Jewish or Islam or pagan or Hindi or in any other religion, whatever it is you're following, if you live in the world now that is the colonization of the Western society, right? That's like infiltrated everything. Hold on a second. Sorry, my dog just wants to play with the kids, right? He just wants to play. So I got to thinking about how there's this Abrahamic influence over the world. And that influence is rooted in Judaism, but it's also rooted in like Zoroastrianism. It's also rooted in Sumerian. It's rooted, at the beginning of civilization. And now civilization, if we go back to the precession of the equinox ages video, right, what we know, or in some people still believe today, that it's 6,000 years, right? So like the world is not 6,000 years old. It's definitely not. But the civilization that we live in could be about that age, right? The dawn of like buildings and commerce and settling down, right? So we are rooted in that. We did come from that. We are built up from that. Anything that is influenced by it now came from those roots. And it's so if we look at it from that angle, and we're looking at our inequality, right? Subservience of certain individuals. Let's talk about women, right? We don't talk about genders, or talk about like everyone that is subserviated to the man. Say, listen to your dad, listen to your husband, like this is your role, this is what you're supposed to do, right? And we reject that now. But previously that was the standard, right? And if you didn't comply with that, then you suffered. And even still to this day, and I can tell you as a single mother, independent person working in any field, every field, we are subjugated, right? We are subject to certain things, and we're expected to do certain things. And when we aren't, we're oftentimes punished. We're punished by society. We're punished by the rules, the laws, just the way it is. It's just the way it is, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with what I'm saying or not. It's the truth. Take it or leave it. And so that is based on the. Where's my dog? Hold on. Okay, sorry, I don't want you to have to listen to him drinking. That sound. But the marriage inequality, it's based on that subjugation of male and female, right? That like Adam and Eve, right? So Eve was supposed to listen to her husband Adam. She's supposed to be subservient to him. The original female, who was Lilith, who was born in God's likeness, according to the legend, right? And the equal to Adam did not want to be subjugated. She wanted to be free, just like Adam was. And because she decided to not be, she was expelled, is the story. But other stories say she left. Either way, this independent woman was looked down upon and demonized. And we can talk about that at great length later. But the one that he kept, the one that was supposed to be the one that the embodiment of the female role, right? She was a servant of his. And then, according to the story, she was the reason, she was the guilty party that got kicked out of paradise, and is the reason for all of women's suffering and whatever. So women need to listen to their men. So that's according to the Adam and Eve story. All right. So that's marriage inequality, gender inequality, role inequality, all based on this Abrahamic principle, right? And then we've got our commerce systems. You talk about commerce systems because that's based on Cain and Abel, right? The Gemini systems. That's the age of Gemini was when we started to diversify languages. It was like the Tower of Babel whole nother thing also. Let's keep on topic. So, but that was when business and trade starts to come in. People have an overstock of goods that they've grown, or wool, or whatever product it is that they're producing now, that they can stay in one place and they can trade that for other goods. So they no longer need to keep complete everything. They don't have to do everything to sustain themselves. Now they can kind of outsource a lot of things and import things. And so then, but that breeds competition, right? So now we've got fratricide, because it's okay to go after someone who does the same thing as you, who's your brother, right? Or your sibling in business, right? And take them down, take them out, be the one on top, right? And this is par for the course, right? We build our systems, we build our economy on capitalism, on taking down the person underneath us, and just keep climbing to the top, climbing to the top, climbing to the top. You know, it's disgusting. If I'll go off on a tangent, so I won't, but that our economic systems are based on this Cain and Abel philosophy, where two people, one they're supposed to be the same brothers coming from the same place, and one kills the other, right? Competition, jealousy, to get them to succeed. That's what we do in business, right? Business is business. It's just business. It's gross. All right. And then we've got our value system based on like Abraham, Isaac, and Ishmael, right? Father Abraham had many sons. Well, Ishmael did too. And these all come from, so Ishmael is subservient, right? His mother was Egyptian slave, and Sarah couldn't have children. So Abraham had a child with his handmaid out of wedlock. And then once God granted Sarah the gift of pregnancy with Isaac, Ishmael and Hagar were no longer needed, and so they were thrown out because they're worthless people according to this story, right? The only ones that matter are the people from this specific bloodline that were born under the bonds of this specific sacred vow. Well, that's how life works nowadays, right? These people are on top, these people are on bottom. You know what I mean? Like, you have to work for us, and these people are just worthless. And that's horrible. Horrible. We know that that's horrible. You know that in your body and in your soul that humans are humans, that people are people, that animals are animals. Like, you just abandon someone like that. You enslave someone, take advantage of their body, force them to produce another human being, and then when you get a different one, you just throw them both out into the desert. What the hell kind of shit is that? And then God says, take your other son up to the top of a mountain and sacrifice him. So you're like, okay, because this is what we're supposed to do, because we're supposed to just give everything, no matter what, to this invisible sky god. And like, we base everything on this. Whether you are part of this religion or thought or not, the society that you live in is based on this principle. Okay, so then the empirical expansion based on the theory of Moses, right? Because that's the hierarchy of subjects. So we're going to take you out into the desert. You're going to be completely dependent on this person who's wandering you through. Just follow him blindly, right? And when you start to revert back to your old ways, you will be punished. And then he hands you these commandments, militarized commands. You will do this, you will do this, you will do this. Well, all of those will do, you will, thou shalts, actually were the 40 laws of Mott from Egypt. And she was saying, I will not. She was taking responsibility, and she was saying, you need to take responsibility for that too. So I will not lie. I will not kill. I will not do this. But that was a self-commandment. That was a self-empowerment. And it was offered to us as humans. Empower yourself. Make those choices for yourself. I will not do this. I, Heather Stargazer, will not kill. I, Heather Stargazer, will not steal. Right? I will not do those things. That's self-empowering. That's me telling you, that's me making the vow to myself that I will not do this. It is not a commandment handed down from me on high. It's a suggestion as a way to live. And if I adopt that and take accountability for myself, then I will live a good life. And they say, thou shalt not, because it removes that responsibility. It gives you an order. It put like an order, like militarized commandment. Thou shalt not do this, or thou shalt burn in hell. Okay. And so it's, that's how we take things, we take over, because we've told you not to do this under the auspice that you will be punished by some empirical overlord, right? And so now we can behave that way because now we have a human empirical overlord. Now we have a king, or we have a, whoever to command us, to tell us to do things. When you receive a command, you do not have a choice. It removes your choice. It removes your accountability, even though they say that their God gives free will, right? So you can choose if you want to do that, and you can choose if you want to get punished for it, because you're going against a commandment. Not like, I chose to do that and I created this chaos. I created the repercussions of my actions, so now I will be punished by suffering the consequences of those actions in the very real 3D world. Right? So maybe I should choose to be more accountable for how I do things. No, that's not the point. If you're empowered and you have to choose, then you will not be subjugated to an empirical sky god or an empirical force, because you will know better. You won't subjugate yourself. Okay, so by making it a commandment and limiting the ones that you get, rather than 40, we're just going to give you 25% of that. You get 10, and you have to live by those. And by the way, they tell you that you have to, honor this God or else. That's I don't think that one, I'm not sure if that one's in the laws of Ma. I'd have to look, but it doesn't feel right. And then we built a psychological system. So once these things are in place, once each of these systems are in place and people start to move away from them in a way, there has to be a way to bring people back so that civilization maintains order, right? So at first it was like the family structure, that's the man and wife, right? And then there's in the family, and then we've got the commerce, the buildings, the trade agreements. Okay, so we've built those. Okay, well, now we've got to make sure that we know who can be in our trade and who can't be in our trade. And now we need to know how to command everyone, since it's an empire and not just a small town, not just a kingdom. It's all of these places. We have to give laws and order. You must. And so now, because people are reacting to that, we have to create a psychological system in order to maintain, right, the sanity of the people around us, and this power that we is held over. So with that, we build the Jesus system, right, which is the exterior sacrifice. Someone else will die for your sins. Someone else already did. All right, and because they died for their sin, for your sins, and took the punishment for them, you can still live in paradise after you're dead. You just have to subjugate yourself to this idea, give away your power, continue to live under these commandments, and that way you and it's like okay, so since Jesus died for our sins and we are forgiven for that, well, then there must also be someone else to blame. Someone must be to blame. We must punish someone. I mean, this is like what we view as justice, right? Not that you will suffer the consequences of your actions. No, I must go after you and crucify you for it, right? And so therefore that lamb and martyr kind of turns into a scapegoat, as opposed to a majestic savior. He holds the burdens, right? I cast all my cares upon you. I lay all of my burdens down at your feet. And anytime I don't know what to do, I cast all my cares upon you. Well, guess what? We heathen pagans, we don't believe that. We want to take responsibility. We need to take responsibility. We need to carry our cares. We need to resolve them in order to grow and progress. In order to maintain sanity, I better live this certain way, because if not, I am going to suffer the consequences in the real life. So is my family. So are the people that I'm in business with. I have to live right. I have to live honorably, because that's my charge. I am accountable. All right. And when I live that way, my life goes a lot better. The people around me's life goes a lot better. Society goes a lot better. All right. And because I am not expecting someone else to carry my load, I'm understanding that that load that I need, if I incur that weight, I have to carry it. I have to bear it. And therefore I will try to make better choices. And so it's like, well, why then? Why do we choose such ridiculous things? Why do we choose such ridiculous leaders? Like, look at our politicians. Look who's in charge. Look at all of it. Like, all of it's a mess. Why do we choose these people? And it's because they look like our own flawed logic, right? Because they look like our own bad thinking, because they resemble our own demented families, right? All of this is familiar. If our logic is flawed and their logic is flawed, well, then they must just be human. I'm seeing things this weird way, they're seeing things this weird way, so I'm going to side with them, and then we're going to see how that doesn't work out, right? And then we're going to blame this other side over here. None of that makes any sense whatsoever, but that's what we grew up with in our everyday life and our families. So that's what we build everything to look like. So that's what our society looks like. That's what our governments look like. That's what our leaders look like, right? They look like dysfunctional Thanksgiving dinner, right? Thanksgiving is dysfunctional. Okay. Because we like chaos, because it isn't boring and it keeps us stimulated, because we're actually afraid of peace, because it's unsettling to us, because we're so accustomed to not looking at our problems and not looking at the chaos, the thing we don't want to accept responsibility for, and we don't have to, because as soon as we're dead, we're going to heaven, so who cares anyway, right? I asked God to forgive me for that thing I did. It should be all right. And if there's peace, something must be afoot, something must be going on, right? No, we can't have that. We got to stir it up, or else it doesn't look like the inside of ourselves feel. And that's just too much, because we want flawed people because they're easy to blame. Yeah, because if the people that we're putting in charge do stupid things that we advocated for, then we can say that person was really stupid, and we can blame them, and we can, toss that to someone else. Why aren't we making policy for this? Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we doing this? Right? Because we've been taught that someone else should be in charge of our decisions. And again, I come back to that. The only way we can change the world is to change ourselves, is to take accountability for it, for our actions and for ourselves. And to say, you know what? I want my kid to read that book. I want my kid to read Lord of the Flies. I bought him a copy. I'm not going to rely on the school. I'm not going to rely on what other people decide is okay for my kids to read, even though all of these things should be available to everyone. And you should be able to choose what you want to read, but we can't, because this is the way our society is structured. And it's not doing anybody any favors. It's obviously not working, right? So when he posted, to bring it back around, when he posted this article and I read it about Revelation, and I thought about Revelation and Genesis and the regeneration and the wording that's necessary to influence a mass of people, I realized that is the same thing that's been going on always. It's a useful tool for those who are unaware that it's being used with them. But once you're privy to it, once you've acknowledged that this is a mechanism, right, you can avoid pushing the button. And when people try to push it with you, you can avoid that button being pushed within you, and you don't have to go push anybody else's. Okay, I'm sharing this information with you. If you choose to receive it, you're choosing to receive it. If you don't want to receive it, then go away. You don't have to. No one said that. I'm pleased I'm not pushing anybody into anything. I am showing you what I've learned, and I'm showing you something from a perspective that is kind of difficult to hear, and it's very difficult to say. And I know what happens when you say things like this, and I want you to know that I'm saying it out of love, because I want us to get better. I want us to do better. I want us to be better. I want us to grow. And in order to do that, we have to grow up. And in order to do that, sometimes we have to look at the things about our families and about ourselves and about our societies that we don't really like, and then put them in therapy. Deal with it. Go through the steps. Hold yourself accountable. Okay? So I don't know what else I could say about that right at this moment. But if you have any input for me, or if you have anything, I'm just trying to look through my notes to see if I missed any great points that I wanted to share with you. Oh, there was this one thing about the apple, right? The Abrahamic's adaptation of psychological control mechanisms being that red pill, blue pill, the modernization of the apple of Adam and Eve, or the pomegranate, or the cakes in Alice in Wonderland, or the wheat of Zohar, right? That good and evil being like the knowledge, and the magic being like the new age. So it's like the garden, the matrix is society. And so it's like there's still this exterior, you know, like outcast. If you're the outcasts are just like the Israelites being thrown out of the thing, and then the Christians are just like the narcissists who won't accept responsibility. Oh, yeah, yeah. Sacred geometry, gentrified, controlled substance, Kabbalah, classical design, evolution of wisdom. This is all coming back to the fore, because all of these things are being represented now, just like in the Renaissance, when in in Italy and throughout France, people were, and in like lower Spain, right? People were starting to really re-examine the classical art styles, the classical philosophers. They were looking at geometries. They were looking at these ways of handling things, the ways of seeing nature, observations from thousands of years before that, and they were playing with them again. And now we're starting to do the same thing again. It's like a whole nother renaissance, right? And we're looking at all of these things, and we're incorporating them into our work. And we're not new, but we're novice. How does it say that? Like, we're looking at something, a toy that we've been playing with for a very long time, and we're discovering that you can open it up and there's like all this stuff in there, and it's always been in there, and it's held the whole thing together. I don't know if this analogy is making sense. We're right where we're supposed to be. Don't let yourself be fooled by any of this. Just keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, be honest with yourself, and thank you. I don't know. Thank you. I just really needed to say all that. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.